It's time for health tips. Now here's your host, Dr. Alma Jenkins.
Good evening. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Dr. Alma Jenkins and this is Health Tips. I hope that you were watching last time and we did our exercises. I want you to start making a point of doing that this month. This is January and this is a good time for you to get into the swing of exercise. You'll be so happy you did that when the summer rolls around and you're more toned and buffed. You know, you'll be able to put that swimsuit on and all those wonderful things that you do in the summer. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Remember that we asked you to send in any recipe that you wanted us to try on the show and try to make it a healthy recipe. You know, we're not quite ready for you to send us in chitlins or you know, how to fry fatback or something like that. What we want is something healthy that you've tried and you liked it. And if we pick your recipe, then we may ask you to come onto the show and show us how you make that recipe. I'd love to have you over and have you to do that in my kitchen and just show everybody what it is that you like. So we look forward to hearing from you. Send your recipe in. We'd love to have you do that. Just send it to the address on the bottom of the show. You might want to take a minute now, write that down. If you come across a great recipe or you already have one that everybody says is the greatest thing, then do that, okay? And send that in and we may pick your recipe. Also, if you want health tips to come to your church or your organization, just drop us a line. Give us a month or two lead time and we'd love to come to your organization, your church, your group, and speak. Okay? So let us hear from you. So what are we going to do tonight? Well, you know, a lot of you are coming into the office with similar issues, and some of you are familiar with this particular problem that we're going to talk about tonight. It affects a great number of people. It accounts for much time off of work. So work time is affected by it. And you know this as, and I'm going to jot it down here, IBS. Now, what does that stand for? IBS. Many of you have heard your doctor say, oh, you have IBS. But that's usually after they've explained to you what it is. That is irritable bowel syndrome. Irritable bowel syndrome. So now you know what it is if you hear about it or somebody says something to you about irritable bowel. So what is it about irritable bowel? Well, you know what is so interesting about your gut is that your gut has its own nervous system. Truly, it does. I mean, you've got your brain up here, but you've got kind of another brain down here in your gut. It has its own system and it's connected to the brain through the nerves. Okay? So they can talk to each other. So whenever something is bugging you up here, the message gets to your gut and your gut will respond. Now, some of you are familiar with this. You come in and you've got diarrhea. And now here's how the questioning usually goes. How often, how many times a day are you having this? Some of you will say 4 or 5 times a day. And I'll ask, does it ever wake you up from sleep at night? And most of the time, the answer to this question with irritable bowel is no. Usually, with people with irritable bowel, when you go to bed at night and you're asleep, you usually don't have to jump up and go have a bowel movement. That's just how it often works. So usually you're not up at night. Once you go to bed, you're okay. All right? There's usually no blood in your stool. Irritable bowel does not have blood in the stool. So let's go over some things that it's not. Okay? Just so you can kind of get a feel. So what about IBS? By definition, if you have IBS, you will not have blood in your stool. So let's wipe this. Okay, so no bleeding. So there's no bleeding with IBS, all right? Generally, there's no weight loss. Now, there could be if you're just so worried that whenever you get worried, you don't eat. So you could lose weight, but in general, there's not really weight loss with this so much, okay? So those are two big signs of that. And usually not up at night with it. Okay, you could be now, but these are just generalizations with IBS. All right, so, but the alarm symptoms are bleeding, weight loss. Those are what we call alarm symptoms. And IBS usually doesn't have alarm symptoms, okay? So that's one thing to remember. So if you're having bleeding, you're up all night, you just lost a ton of weight, you may not have IBS. You need to really look into that. But let's talk about it for a minute. So your brain says, hey, this particular problem has you really worried. You are just worried. Maybe your husband left you, or you broke up with your boyfriend, or you had a loss in the family. Your mom died, or something traumatic has happened to you, or maybe not even that. You don't have enough money to pay your mortgage. You don't have enough, you're short. So you're worried. You're up at night worrying. That's a stress. Your brain is registering a stress. That stress gets told to your gut, and your gut is going to react in the ways that it can react. What are some of the ways it can react? Well, it can speed up, and for those people where the gut becomes hyperactive, you've got diarrhea. Oftentimes you're not up at night though, because if you're able to go to sleep, that relaxes the gut. So it's not doing all that. So you generally sleep through the night. Some people don't respond that way. Some people respond with the gut slowing down. So then they're constipated, can't go to the bathroom. But that creates problems too, because when you don't go, you're miserable after a while. I don't know about you, but I can't stand constipation. It's really uncomfortable after a while. And it's underestimated too, because you really need to get those toxins out of you. So it can manifest as diarrhea, as constipation, and then there are those people with irritable bowel who go from diarrhea to constipation to diarrhea. So they fluctuate between the two. Are you that way? Has that happened to you? You can go from one to the other. Okay, that's part of the irritable bowel picture. A lot of these patients may have pain, abdominal pain, crampy pain. Sometimes it's just a pain that says you got to go to the bathroom, and once you go, it's all better. Sometimes it's a pain that you get just before you got to go to work. Maybe over the weekend you're fine, you don't hurt, you're not having these symptoms, but first thing Monday morning, all this stuff comes on you. And it's real. You're not kidding. You really feel this. That's classic for irritable bowel. Okay? So one of the things that it can affect worse is those people who really do have a problem, like Crohn's patients or ulcerative colitis patients. Some of you know what that is. We're not going to go into those problems tonight. But for those people who have that, you can have irritable bowel on top of that. And those of you who do have that know that if you get worried or you're upset about something, it can actually trigger an attack of Crohn's or ulcerative colitis if you have that already. So what's going on up here really does affect what goes on in the gut, which is why we need to learn to manage stress. So what do we do with patients with irritable bowel? This is a real problem. And even though it may be something you're worried about or you're uptight about, it's still a problem. And we need to figure out what to do about it. Okay, so there are a few things that we can do, or more than a few. There are some things we can do to help you with irritable bowel. What are some of those things? Well, the first thing I tell patients is you need to find some stress busters. Okay? Do you know what a stress buster is? It's something that helps you deal with the stress in your life. So let's look at some stress busters. The first stress buster I'm going to talk about is exercise. Because when you exercise, you help your body to help you handle stress. You release certain hormones and chemicals that help relax you and that make you feel good. And that helps to deal with the stress. So that's a natural. Number 2, rest. It's hard to handle problems when you're tired. You're more irritable when you're tired. You know, you're more ready to jump down somebody's throat when you're tired. You haven't had enough sleep. So you're going to be jumpy. You know, you're not even able to handle your day-to-day stresses because you haven't had enough sleep. Now, most of us need to get a good 6 to 8 hours of sleep a night. Many of us think we don't because, you know, we're used to running on 4 or 5 hours of sleep. But let me tell you, as you get older, you need more sleep. And really, you're pushing it for your body, getting 4 hours of sleep a night. Try to get 6 to 8 hours on a regular basis, okay? You'd be surprised what it will do for you. You'll be surprised what it'll do for your memory when you're getting more sleep. And it'll help you lose weight if you're overweight. Believe it or not, sleep helps you lose weight. Because when you're tired, first of all, you don't feel like doing anything. You don't want to fix a healthy meal. You want to get whatever's close at hand. Late at night, you're frustrated, so you go in the kitchen, you go into the refrigerator and you get a snack or something that you think will help you get through this time. Some of you, when you get worried, you have Rocky Road ice cream. Or you'll, go get a sundae. That's what you just don't even really need, right? So you're more apt to go off of your plan when you're tired. You feel kind of sorry for yourself too, because you say, well, I've earned this. I'm going to go ahead and have this, this extra piece of cake or whatever you're going to do. So stress busters, exercise, rest. You wouldn't believe rest is a stress buster, but it is. Okay, so those are 2 of the things you can do. Number 3, talk. And I don't mean just talking about anything. I mean, if you have a problem, you probably need to talk it out with someone that you trust, okay? You don't want your business everywhere. So find a friend that you trust and that you think would give you good advice, or just somebody to sound off with. And this is a problem that I find is more of an issue with men because, you guys, you don't like to talk about stuff. So you keep it welled up. You keep it stored in you. And then this is where we get our heart attacks and other problems because you're not really talking that thing out. I don't usually have to tell my ladies to talk because we naturally like to talk. I mean, that's just how it is. But what we might not be doing is we may not be talking to the right people. We may not be talking to people who can actually advise us properly. We may be talking to people that are just going to take our side and going to agree with us and make us feel worse, okay? But you want to talk to somebody that you think is going to give you sound advice. So communicating is very important. This even applies to those of you who are married, who are not communicating. That increases the stress. So maybe you and husband need to sit down and talk about this problem that's making you so ill. Okay? Maybe you and your best friend need to sit down and iron out the problems that you've been having lately that have you now upset. So communication is a big deal. Now, what about something else you can do? It's not necessarily a stress buster, but it helps your body deal with stress, and that is eating properly. Let's put this on the board as well. Let's put on here eating. And I try to encourage this with you on the show. Eat right. Okay? Eat right, because when you don't eat right, you can get problems with elimination, Remember, the things that will help you to eliminate, which will make you feel good, which will help you be able to solve your problems, are your veggies and your fruit. Okay? The things that are going to clog you up, all right, are going to be grease, meat, sauces. Okay? These are the things that are going to be problems for you, because these are going to slow your gut down. And what's worse than being worried and constipated and feeling like your belly is churning? Okay? If you can keep things moving, that's one less problem you have to worry about with your irritable bowel. Okay? So if you can go light on this kind of stuff and go a little bit heavier on these things, that's going to help your body be prepared to handle the stress that you're having to deal with. So what are some of the things that you can eat that will help you deal with some of the stresses? I know we said fruit and vegetables, but there are some fruit and vegetables that are mightier than others. Okay? I want to see us deal more with veggies and fruit. Maybe some things we don't always have. And then there are some things we have a lot of that are just absolutely wonderful. But some of the things I've stressed on the show that many of you may not be eating enough of are things like asparagus, loaded with good stuff, including antioxidants in that. Most of us have collards and all, but what about Brussels sprouts? Okay, how many of you have tried that? Okay, and many of you have cabbage and collards, as I said, and that's good too. So even if you don't have this and you have that, that's wonderful. What about fruit? Try something different. You got your kiwi, your blueberries. I'm surprised at how many of you don't like blueberries. I haven't even tried them. You know, you eat blueberry muffins and all that, but just to eat the blueberries, many of you haven't done that. And these are packed with antioxidants. You know what those are, right? Those help you to age slower. You don't age as quickly. You eat the antioxidants, which really help your body stay repaired as well. It helps your body repair itself, because you know we're constantly aging. And so life is a matter of trying to retard a lot of that so it doesn't go as quickly as it would go. So try having some different fruits and vegetables to equip your body. I liken it to stopping at a gas station and putting gas in your car. You know, the better gas you use, the longer life of your car, because it's going to help your car run with less of a problem. Same thing with foods. The higher quality foods you put in your body, okay, you're putting better gas in your car. You're going to last longer, okay? And it's going to help you too in terms of losing weight, in terms of better elimination. And when you're eliminating on a regular basis, you have to feel better than if you're stopped up for a week. So try some of these, okay? All righty. So let's say you've done all of that and you're still having some problems. What can we do as physicians to make it better for you? Well, there are some medicines for irritable bowel. Yes, there are. Some of the medicines are anti-anxiety medicines. So let me put that down. Anti-anxiety. So don't be surprised if you go to your physician and he tells you you have irritable bowel and he starts to give you something that you say, oh, I thought that was for nerves, okay? Because as I told you, much of what's happening here started up here, okay? So that's one reason that the anti-anxiety medicines tend to help patients who have irritable bowel. And then there's something called Bentyl. Now, a lot of you don't know it as Bentyl. You know it as dicyclomine. Dicyclomine, okay? Many of you are on that already. Now, what does that do? That kind of relaxes the gut muscles. Because remember when I said sometimes you'll get all tied up in a knot and your gut will get hyperactive and it'll start moving quickly and or cramping down or spasming. And when it does, it traps gas. So you feel bloated, you know, and you know if you could just get rid of that gas, you might feel better. Well, Bentyl tends to relax that. And it's a medicine that we often use for irritable bowel. Now, there are variations on this that the physician might choose to give you, okay? And then sometimes, depending on what state you're in, if you're constipated, then we tend to give you something for constipation. Now, there are some new things on the market now for constipation. I'm just going to name some things. One of the things that's old, tried, and true is lactulose. A lot of us use that. Some patients will get bloated with that because some people do just have that reaction to lactulose. But it's cheap. Most people can afford it, and oftentimes it works. And it's good for constipation. Okay? So it'll help move your bowels. So what if you are constipated? What are some other things? Well, some of the newer drugs that you might have trouble getting because your insurance may not cover it would be things like Amitiza and Linzess. These are two of the newer ones that we use, and oftentimes we'll have samples for you of these drugs. They work very well. So we can use those in cases of irritable bowel, in case that you're constipated. Now, what if you have diarrhea, the diarrhea part of it? Well, there are various things we can use for diarrhea too. And, you know, to slow that gut down. Sometimes we'll use Lomodal. Lomodal is just what it says. It slows the motility. It makes the motility lower. So it's kind of a play on what it really does. Okay? So instead of the motility being fast, it slows the motility down. So we use that too. We can use something called Lomodal. And usually with Lomodal, they don't want you to use more than 6 tablets in a day. It's like 2 tablets after every loose stool, not to exceed 6 in 24 hours. So that's the Lomodal business. Okay? And then there's Imodium. And I think you can get Imodium over the counter. Imodium. That slows the gut down as well. And then in some instances, we'll use a powder. It's called Questran or cholestyramine. And that works by a certain mechanism to slow the gut down, to slow down the bowel movements primarily. Okay? So these are 3 of the things that we sometimes use for diarrhea. But I'm telling you this not because I want you to go ask for it necessarily, because you may not have IBS, particularly if you have diarrhea. Diarrhea could be a symptom of something else, but again, most of the time, with irritable bowel all the time, there's not any blood. So if you're having diarrhea and it's bloody, it's not irritable bowel. If you're constipated and you haven't had a workup and you're over 50, that might not be irritable bowel. You want to get a workup for that. So, you know, it just depends. I'm talking to those people who have a diagnosis of irritable bowel, and I'm talking to people who have symptoms like this to think about that might be what it is. You know how some of you are when you get a little symptom or something, the first thing you think about is cancer. You think, oh, I've got cancer, oh no. So this is to kind of calm you down a little bit too. It doesn't have to be cancer. Most of the time, it's not. Okay? So make sure you're getting your preventive care. If you're over 50, from the stomach standpoint, you should have already had your colonoscopy, or you should be planning to get it. Okay? So we want you to do that, and then you don't have as much to worry about when you get a change in your bowel habits. All right? So if you keep up with your preventive care, you have less to worry about. This is the beginning of the year. I want you to sit down and say, okay, what test do I need to get this year? If you're over 50, you need your colonoscopy. If you're a woman and you're over 30, you need to be thinking about your mammograms. When did you get that done? So those are 2 things I'm putting on your agenda right now tonight, okay? So I want to remind you that if you are just tuning into the show, we have invited you to send in your recipes. If you have a special healthy recipe that you want us to share with the public, we're inviting you to send that recipe in to us. We would love to put that recipe on the show. So if you'll let us know, we can put that recipe on the show, and we might even invite you. We might even invite you to come on the show and fix that recipe for us, okay? So send that in to us. We'd love to have you do that. That was one thing we asked you to do. The second thing we said is, if you want us to be on your show or in your organization, if you would just send in an invitation to us, give us a month or 2 lead time, and we'll be happy to have you on our show. We'll be happy to come to your organization, I should say, and talk to you, okay? So if you'll let us know that and tell us what you want us to talk about, or maybe you don't even know what you want us to talk about, you just want us to come and give a health topic. We'll pick a topic for you, and we will share that with you. What does that do? That gives you a part in your care, and it educates you and empowers you to know what questions to ask. When you go to the doctor now, you need to have an idea of what you want to ask the doctor. Jot it down before you go there so that you get all of your questions answered. Insist that the doctor take the time to answer your question, or make another appointment to come back and get those questions answered. It is very possible that they can't do it all on that visit, but make another appointment, because you need to know what's going on with you. And if you're a nervous person, get somebody to go in with you so they can take notes while you listen to what's being said. I'm Dr. Alma Jenkins. Thank you for watching. Good night.